Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Noelle and in this video I'm going to review some watercolor paper. I would like to thank Etchr for generously sending me a sketchbook and a paper block in exchange for an honest review. My goal is to share my thoughts about these products and I hope that you will learn something along the way. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to share them in the comments. So first, I would like to look at the watercolor block. The length of each edge of the square block is 8 inches, which is equal to just over 20 centimeters. This paper is made with 50% cotton, the given weight is 300 GSM, and the texture is cold pressed. This block is unique not just in its square shape, but also in the fact that 2 edges of the block are glued together, unlike my other blocks where all 4 edges are glued together. The top and bottom have the adhesive while the 2 sides do not, and I believe this is an important detail to keep in mind if you do consider purchasing it. Moreover, the block feels sturdy and the size makes it easily portable. Next, I would like to look at the Etchr Portrait Sketchbook. This sketchbook features a cotton canvas cover, a bookmark, an elastic band that wraps around the cover, and a nifty folder in the back. The paper inside is 100% cotton and 230 GSM. The first page stays mostly flat, but I did have to fold it differently than the other pages because of a strip of glue near the binding of the book against the cover. The last 2 pages in the back also have this characteristic, so they need to be folded as well. The dimensions of the pages are based on the standard size B5. I would like to note that the book cover does reflect these dimensions, and the paper inside is about 1/8 of an inch short in length and width. I have other sketchbooks and paper pads that are slightly short as well, so this is just something to be aware of. I know you already had a peek at this page, but I would now like to share my personal thoughts about this sketchbook. For the purpose of this video, I thought that I should show both products how I would normally use them, which is to plan a painting out in my sketchbook and then create the final piece on a watercolor block. The sketchbook paper is arguably nicer than the watercolor block paper because of their cotton compositions, but I had already painted some swatches on the front side of this sheet, which I will discuss a bit more later, so I had the space to mess around a bit more and also test out how the backside of this paper behaves. So for this paper specifically, I think that this sheet handles, washes, and glazes wonderfully. When I try the wet on wet technique, the paint is able to bloom without any issues. I can lay down my watercolor paint and it will dry smoothly and evenly without the undesirable cauliflowering effect. I believe this paper to be comparable to my other cotton watercolor papers like Arches, and it's nice to have this level of paper quality bound into a sketchbook for traveling and convenience. As I am working on the sketchbook, I am trying techniques that are an important part of my painting process. I like layering, and the paper I use for my paintings need to support that. And based on my experience here, I am happy to say that this paper does just that. I tried using masking fluid a couple times on this paper, and I think it behaves great. I wasn't worried about ripping the paper when I was removing it, and I did not lose much of the paint glazed underneath it either. This practice session was intended specifically to figure out how I can paint some interesting flowers and plants found in my reference photo. When I paint in my sketchbook, I am not concerned about whether or not it looks good or if I should take something too far, because this is the place for me to work out the bugs and push those boundaries. I even continued to practice on this page while I was working on the other piece. I did eventually choose to scrap many of these concepts altogether for my final painting because of personal preference. I'm not sure if I'll be using this sketchbook like this for other projects because it just seems too nice for this kind of thing, but we will see. My colored pencils look good on this paper, and my Neocolor 2 wax pastels also re-wet beautifully. It's hard to judge the performance of the colored pencils because textured paper isn't usually where they thrive, but knowing how these mediums behave on my other watercolor papers, I would say it behaves well. Overall, this paper is capable of a lot more than what I threw at it, so I will be exploring more with it in the future. Before I move on to the block, I would like to show my swatches on the first page in more detail. At the top of this page, I was mostly getting a feel for how water and paint sits on the paper. I can get a variety of textures, and I'm able to have good control of my washes. Right below this section, I swatched some of my most granulating colors to see how it looked on the paper. I think this paper did a great job at letting these pigments shine. The lighter marks and some of the swatches are some of the lifting tests I did with the granulating and the phthalo pigments. In the last section, I was testing how well the paper could handle painter's tape and masking fluid, while also making the small practice painting on the right. Now onto the watercolor block. When I received this watercolor block, I was very curious about it because I haven't heard about them at all compared to all the reviews I have seen for their watercolor sketchbooks. I have never painted with any paper that is composed of both cotton and cellulose fibers, only 100% cellulose or 100% cotton. I had expectations that the paper would be nicer than my regular cellulose watercolor paper, and so it should at least be able to handle washes and layers pretty well. Unlike the sketchbook, I did not do any painting tests before starting this piece, so I was going in blind. As I worked on this piece, do keep in mind that I was a bit rusty and I actually ran out of paint a few times while I was painting some of the first washes. And so some of the splotchiness is because I was painting with a dry brush and I overestimated the drying time of the paint before I was finished with the wash. The aspect of this paper that I enjoy is how it can handle several layers of paint. Using soft brushes and having a light hand really helps, but I didn't feel like I was lifting the layer of paint underneath unless I scrubbed it with my brush. And even then, I was able to do some light glazes over some detailed areas without losing all of my brushwork. Considering the fact that this paper is 50% cotton, I can see how it behaves as a hybrid of the two. You get some of the durability from the cotton that elevates it from regular cellulose paper, and this makes it a better painting experience for me. I did observe that once the paint dried on the sheet, it was a lot lighter than I anticipated, so I often had to go back and darken some areas to make sure the contrast was balanced. In addition, I also measured the block and noticed that the size of the sheets are just slightly short of 8 inches, but not as short as the sketchbook, so compared to my Arches watercolor blocks that run slightly large, this is just something to be aware of. I do believe the watercolor block is capable of supporting nice finished pieces. It's a good travel size, and as a watercolor block, it does keep the paper secure and stable while working. I did not test how other mediums behaved on this paper except for watercolor and a teeny bit of gouache shown here, and considering how well it handles watercolor, I do think this paper is a solid candidate for future gouache paintings as well. Overall, the block is cute, but I feel a bit underwhelmed. It's a nice middle-of-the-road block if you don't want to pay the prices of more expensive cotton paper while still getting some quality. I don't like outright saying an art supply is good or bad because I think that there is a time and place for everything, and everyone has their own preferences. In some ways, I feel like I still need to adjust more to these products so I can learn how to make them shine best, just like any other art supplies that are new to me. Also, when I use this again, I think I will try to tape the edges to prevent the paper from flaring on the sides, as you can see here, although it didn't really bother me that much while I was working. To conclude this video, I hope that you gained some familiarity of these products. I would love to read your comments, thoughts, and questions. If you have ever tried any of Etchr's products, I am really interested in reading your experiences as well. You can purchase a print of the sunset landscape piece on my in-print shop, linked in the description below. Thanks again to Etchr for sending me these products to review. I enjoyed the exploration and I look forward to using them more in the future. You can find me on my social media here, and thank you all so much for watching.